They say that iron, when subjected to extreme fire and the relentless hammer, can transform into steel, stronger, more resistant, more valuable. The heat doesn't destroy it. On the contrary, it reveals its true nature. The hammer doesn't break it. It shapes its character. And that's exactly how the Rocky Mountains of Colorado tested the men of the Old West, like fire tests iron. It was the winter of 1878, and Thomas McBride was about to discover what metal he was made of. The blizzard had started 3 days earlier, transforming the mountains into a white and treacherous labyrinth. Thomas, a 45-year-old farmer with calloused hands and eyes that knew life's hardness, had been climbing the steep slope for hours. His 17 sheep, all that remained of his flock after the dry summer, had escaped from the pen during the storm. "Damned creatures," he muttered, his breath vapor freezing in the air. Each step in the deep snow was a battle. The Winchester on his back weighed like lead, but in the mountains, a man without a gun was a dead man. That's when he saw the tracks. They weren't from sheep. They were large, deep, with claws that marked the snow like death signatures. Wolf Thomas felt his blood freeze. And it wasn't from the cold. Wolves meant two things. His sheep were probably dead, and he could be next. But there was something strange about those tracks. They zigzagged, irregular, as if the animal was injured. Red drops stained the virgin snow, creating a crimson trail that disappeared among the ice-covered pines. Thomas stopped. His instinct screamed to go back. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe that Irish stubbornness his late wife criticized so much, made him go forward. The wind howled between the rocks, carrying a sound that made his heart race. It wasn't the wind, it was a moan, low and suffering, coming from a rock formation ahead. He took the rifle off his back, unlocked the bolt. Every muscle tense, every sense alert. He slowly rounded the rock, finger on the trigger, ... and then he saw it. The wolf was lying under a rocky overhang, trying to shelter from the snow. It was huge, bigger than any wolf Thomas had ever seen. Its grey fur was stained with blood, and an iron trap cruelly bit into its hind leg. The animal's yellow eyes met Thomas's. There was no aggression in them, just pain, and something else, ... something almost human. "Well, I'll be damned," Thomas whispered. The wolf tried to get up, but fell. The trap clinked against the stones. Thomas recognized the model. They were the illegal traps that fur hunters used cruel and banned 2 years ago. A decision was forming in his mind. A decision that could cost his life. And you? Would you have the courage to approach an injured predator? Or would survival instinct speak louder? Comment what you would do in this situation. The blizzard was getting worse, and soon neither man nor wolf would survive the cold. Silence in the mountains has weight. It's not just absence of sound, it's a presence that presses on the eardrums, that makes the heart beat louder, that turns every breath into thunder. Thomas McBride and the injured wolf stared at each other in that heavy silence. Two predators evaluating one another, while snow fell like a curtain between them. "Easy, boy," Thomas murmured, slowly lowering the rifle. "I didn't come here to hurt you," the wolf growled, a deep warning that reverberated on the rocks. But it didn't try to attack, it couldn't. The trap had torn muscles and tendons. How long had it been there? 2 days? 3? Thomas looked at the darkening sky. The approaching storm wasn't an ordinary blizzard. It was one of those the Ute Indians called White Death, capable of burying a man in hours. He needed to find shelter, but something in those yellow eyes. "Sarah always said I was too crazy for my own good," he said to the wind, remembering his wife, dead 3 winters ago. He took off his heavy coat, threw it over the wolf's head. The animal struggled, but Thomas was quick. With the wolf temporarily blind and disoriented, he managed to approach the trap. It was a new House No. 4 model, strong enough to catch a bear. The iron teeth had penetrated deep into the flesh. "This is going to hurt," he warned, as if the wolf could understand. With all his strength, Thomas opened the trap's jaws. The wolf howled, a sound that cut through the frozen air like a blade. But as soon as it was free, it didn't flee. It didn't attack. It just fell in the snow, panting. the mutilated paw dripping scarlet blood. Thomas backed away, recovered his rifle. Now get out of here. Go. But the wolf didn't move, and the storm arrived. In minutes, visibility dropped to 0. The wind became a howling monster, throwing snow and ice like bullets. Thomas could barely see his own hands. He needed shelter, now. Groping blindly, he found a crack in the rock. A shallow cave, but sufficient. He crawled inside, shaking violently. That's when he realized he wasn't alone. The wolf had followed, limping, leaving a red trail. It had dragged itself into the same cave. Man and beast stared at each other in the dimness, separated by less than 6 feet. "You're as stubborn as I am, aren't you?" Thomas laughed, a dry sound without humor. Slowly, very slowly, he took from his pack a piece of jerky, his last meal. He broke it in half, ate one part, threw the other to the wolf. The animal sniffed, suspicious. Then ate, without taking its eyes off Thomas. The storm roared outside. The temperature plummeted. Thomas lit a small fire with the dry twigs he always carried. The wolf dragged itself a little closer to the heat, keeping distance, but no longer hostile. "You know," Thomas said, "my Irish grandfather told stories about wolves that saved people. Always thought it was drunk old man nonsense." The wolf watched him, head tilted, as if listening. That's when Thomas heard it. Over the howling wind, over the crackling fire. Voices, human voices approaching. The wolf heard it too. Its fur bristled, a low growl vibrated in its throat. Thomas immediately put out the fire. In the dark, he whispered, "Quiet, boy. Something's wrong here." The voices were getting closer, and they didn't sound friendly. The voices cut through the storm like hot knives through ice. Thomas pressed his back against the cold cave wall, rifle ready. The wolf had become a motionless shadow, its yellow eyes glowing in the darkness like 2 vigilant embers. Double quotes, ... said he saw smoke around here. Dutch. Shut up, Martinez. With this blizzard, you can't even see your own shadow. 3 voices, 3 men. Thomas recognized the accent, Mexican, Texan, and something from the east, maybe Missouri. Dangerous combination in the mountains. Honest men didn't wander around here during deadly storms. The wolf moved, silent as death itself, positioning itself between Thomas and the cave entrance. The farmer almost laughed at the irony. Protected by a predator that hours before could have killed him. Found something, the third voice, younger, excited. Blood in the snow. Fresh, Thomas felt his heart hammer. The wolf's trail, it would lead straight to them. "Could be from that damned wolf that escaped our traps," Dutch responded. "Worth $50 at the fort, if we get the pelt intact." Illegal traps, fur hunters. Thomas felt disgust rise in his throat. But there was something else, ... "Forget the wolf," Martinez growled. "We need to find a safe place. If the Denver sheriff follows our trail here, ... Sheriff Morrison is dead, idiot. I saw it myself when Dutch shot him." Thomas froze. Sheriff Morrison. He knew the man, honest, father of 3 daughters. These weren't just illegal hunters, they were murderers. Fugitives. The footsteps approached, snow crunching under heavy boots. The wolf crouched, muscles tense like bowstrings. Thomas calculated the odds. 3 armed men against a farmer and an injured wolf. The odds weren't encouraging. "Wait." Dutch stopped abruptly. "Look at this." Thomas held his breath. They had found the cave entrance. Someone's been here. Recent. Dutch's voice was less than 10 feet away. "Martinez, go around the left. Kid, stay in the rear. I'm going in." The barrel of a revolver appeared at the cave entrance, followed by a massive silhouette. Dutch was big, a mountain of a man with a red beard and snake eyes. His eyes swept the darkness, searching. ... The wolf attacked. Not a wild, uncontrolled attack, but calculated, precise. Its fangs found Dutch's wrist, sending the revolver flying. The man screamed, fell backward in the snow. "It's the wolf, the damned wolf." Shots exploded. Bullets ricocheted off the rocks. Thomas rolled to the side, aiming through the cave entrance. He saw Martinez raising a rifle, aiming at the wolf, still fighting with Dutch. Thomas didn't think, he just shot. The Winchester roared. Martinez spun and fell, grabbing his shoulder, his rifle lost in the snow. Ambush, the kid screamed, shooting blindly toward the cave. The wolf released Dutch and disappeared into the storm, limping but fast. Dutch got up, his arm dripping blood, face twisted with rage. "Who's there?" he bellowed. "Show your face, coward." Thomas stayed silent. In the Old West, revealing your position was signing your own death sentence. "Surround the cave," Dutch ordered. "This bastard doesn't leave here alive." Thomas checked his ammunition. 6 bullets in the rifle, 12 more in his belt. Against 3 desperate men, in a deadly storm, trapped in a cave. The odds had gotten worse. But then he heard it. A long, deep howl coming from the rocks above. The wolf hadn't fled. It was waiting. Waiting for the right moment. The storm roared, and the deadly siege began. The snow fell like ashes from a burning world. Thomas counted breaths, calculating every movement of the men outside. Dutch had tied a rag around his wounded arm, his hoarse voice commanding the others like a general in battle. "Kid, climb up the rocks. Martinez, even wounded, you can cover the west flank." Thomas knew that tactic. Triangle siege, there was no escape. The cave, which had been salvation, was now a stone tomb. "Listen, friend," Dutch shouted. "We know you're alone in there. Come out now, and we'll make this quick. Stay there, and it'll be much worse." Thomas spat on the ground. Men who killed a sheriff didn't negotiate. They wanted to ensure there would be no witnesses. A movement in the rocks above caught his attention. The wolf was there, a grey silhouette against the stormy sky. The animal watched him, waiting. But waiting for what? Found a passage. The kid shouted from above, "I can come down behind the cave." Damn. Thomas didn't know that route. The kid couldn't be more than 20 years old, was flanking his position. That's when fate showed its cards. The kid stepped on a snow-covered ledge. What looked like solid rock was just accumulated ice. With a cry of terror, the young man plummeted, his body hitting the rocks with a sound that made even Thomas shudder. He lay motionless in the snow, his leg at an impossible angle. Kid Martinez tried to run to help, but his wounded shoulder made him stumble. Dutch cursed, "Leave the kid. First we finish this. He'll freeze to death." Martinez protested. "Then he dies. I'm not losing another man to stupidity." Thomas saw the hesitation in Martinez. The Mexican looked between Dutch and the fallen kid. Loyalty among thieves, fragile as thin ice. The wolf moved. It descended the rocks with impossible agility for an injured animal. It didn't go for the kid. It went straight to where Dutch was hiding. The wolf, the damned wolf, is back. Dutch fired. Once, twice, 3 times. Missed all. The wolf was a grey ghost, weaving between the rocks. Then disappeared. Where did it go? Where? ... double quotes. Dutch never finished the sentence. The wolf emerged from a blind spot, hitting him from behind. It wasn't an attack to kill, it was to disarm. Dutch's revolver flew, disappearing into a ravine. Thomas took advantage of the chaos. He left the cave, keeping low, using the storm as cover. He needed to reach an elevated position. Martinez saw him there. His Thomas's Winchester spoke first. The bullet grazed Martinez's head, taking off his hat, a warning. "Drop the gun," Thomas shouted, "now." Martinez, already wounded, and seeing Dutch fighting with the wolf, let the rifle fall. Dutch managed to break free from the wolf with a brutal kick. The animal rolled in the snow, howling in pain. The injured paw had given out. "I'll kill you both." Dutch pulled out a knife, eyes bloodshot with fury. "First the beast, then you." He advanced on the fallen wolf. Thomas aimed, but Martinez moved, blocking the shot. Intentional or accidental. The wolf tried to get up, but couldn't. Dutch raised the knife. And then the mountain roared. It wasn't thunder. It was something much worse. The shots, the screams, the impact of the kid falling. They had disturbed the precarious balance of snow accumulated on the slopes. Avalanche. The word barely left Thomas's mouth before the white wall descended like divine wrath. tons of snow and rock plummeting, a roar that swallowed all other sounds. Dutch looked up, the knife still in hand, his face transformed into a mask of pure terror. The mountain had decided to join the fight. The avalanche descended like God's hammer. Thomas dove behind a rock formation, the world transforming into white, deafening chaos. The snow passed like a furious river, tearing out trees, moving boulders as if they were toys. Dutch had no chance. The wall of snow swallowed him in seconds, his last cry muffled by the mountain's fury. Martinez tried to run, but with his wounded shoulder, he stumbled. The snow caught him, dragging him down the slope. Thomas clung to the rock, fingers dug into every crevice, while snow passed on both sides. His lungs burned, the air thin and full of ice crystals. And the wolf? Where was the wolf? When the roar finally ceased, a supernatural silence took the mountains. Thomas emerged from his shelter, coughing, spitting snow. The landscape had changed completely. Where there had been a slope, now was a field of white debris. A weak groan came from his left. The kid was alive, miraculously protected by a rocky ledge. The broken leg had prevented him from fleeing, but also from being swept away. Thomas approached cautiously, rifle ready. The kid looked at him, tears freezing on his young face. Please, ... Don't let me die. Here, ... Where's the money? Thomas asked dryly. What ... What money? From Sheriff Morrison. You wouldn't kill a lawman without reason. The kid swallowed hard. Dutch. Dutch has it in the saddlebags. Had it. $5,000 from the Denver bank. Thomas looked to where Dutch had disappeared. $5,000 buried under tons of snow. Blood for money. The old story of the West. A movement caught his attention. About 20 yards away, a grey form struggled to emerge from the snow. The wolf. The animal had survived, but could barely move. Thomas made a decision. He tied the kid with his own rope, leaving him propped against the rock. I'm going for help. If you die, you die. If you live, you'll answer for the sheriff. You... You're going to leave me here, better than you deserve. Thomas went to the wolf. The animal was in terrible shape, the hind leg now completely useless, deep cuts on its flank, but the yellow eyes still glowed, still alive. Stubborn bastard, Thomas muttered, taking off his coat. Come here. Surprisingly, the wolf didn't resist when Thomas wrapped it in the coat. It weighed a good 40 kilos, but Thomas was strong, hardened by years of ranch work. That's when he saw Martinez. The Mexican had been spit out by the avalanche, about 50 meters away, semi-conscious, body half-buried. Still breathing, but not for long in that cold. Thomas stopped, 3 lives in his hands. A criminal kid, an injured wolf, a dying murderer. The choices we make in the mountains. Martinez opened his eyes, focused on Thomas. Kill. Kill me quickly. Where are the other traps? Thomas asked. The wolf traps. Martinez coughed blood. All along the north slope. Dutch wanted... to clear the mountain. Illegal traps everywhere. How many animals would die? Thomas felt anger boil, but also something else. Pity. No understanding, perhaps. Desperate men do desperate things. There's a cabin, Martinez whispered. 2 kilometers... southeast... supplies... Double quotes, his eyes closed. They wouldn't open again. Thomas adjusted the wolf in his arms. The animal moaned low, but didn't fight. Trust or resignation, impossible to say. The storm was diminishing. Soon it would be night. With an injured wolf in his arms and kilometers of mountain ahead, the chances of survival were minimal. But Thomas McBride was Irish, and the Irish are too stubborn to die easy. The hardest journey was just beginning. The cabin appeared like a mirage in the frozen twilight. Thomas could barely feel his legs. The wolf's weight had long ago turned his arms into burning lead. Each step was a negotiation with his exhausted body. The door was locked, but the lock was simple. A rifle butt, and it gave way. The interior smelled of mold and old leather hunter's hideout, with piled pelts, supplies, even a small iron stove. Thomas placed the wolf on old pelts, his hands shaking so much he could barely light a match. 3 attempts until he got fire in the stove. The heat came slowly, painful, making his skin tingle like 1,000 needles. The wolf breathed shallowly. The hind leg was in terrible shape. Infection was a matter of time. Thomas found a bottle of whiskey among the supplies. It served to clean the wound and to calm his own nerves. "Why am I doing this?" he asked the unconscious animal. "Should have let you die." But he knew the answer. Sarah would have done the same. "Every life has value, Thomas," she used to say. Even when it doesn't seem like it. He found canned food, jerky, even some medical bandages. He worked on the wolf, as he had learned with ranch animals. The wolf woke during the procedure, those yellow eyes fixed on him, but didn't attack. Just watched, as if it understood. That's when he heard horses. Thomas immediately put out the lantern, peeked through the dirty window. 3 riders approached in the twilight. They weren't lawmen, too well armed, too cautious. There's smoke coming from the chimney, Garrett. Thomas's heart sank. More of Dutch's accomplices. Of course, there would be more. $5,000 weren't stolen with just 3 men. "Dutch should have been here hours ago," another said. "The avalanche," Garrett responded. He was tall, dressed in black, 2 crossed holsters on his chest. Saw the mountain different. If Dutch was there, ... then the money is too. Check the cabin, could be survivors, Thomas calculated. 3 rested and armed men. Him exhausted, with little ammunition. The wolf barely conscious. Terrible odds. The wolf moved, trying to get up. Thomas signaled for quiet. The animal understood, or was too weak to disobey. The cabin door exploded with a kick. A short, broad man entered, revolver in hand. Thomas was hidden behind the pile of pelts, praying the darkness would protect him. "Someone's been here," the man shouted. Fires still warm. Footsteps outside. Garrett would enter next. Thomas needed to act. The wolf acted first. With strength it shouldn't have had, the animal launched from the shadow, straight at the short man's throat. Not to kill, to incapacitate. The man fell, screaming, the revolver firing into the ceiling. Thomas took advantage. He jumped from his hiding place, the rifle but meeting the man's temple. Silence. Jenkins. Garrett shouted from outside. What was that? Thomas grabbed the fallen man's revolver. Now he had 2 weapons. The wolf had retreated to the shadows, panting but alert. "Found Dutch," Thomas shouted, disguising his voice. "He's hurt." Hurried footsteps. Garrett ran in, the 3rd man right behind. The moment of distraction was enough. Thomas fired. Not to kill, in Garrett's shoulder, making him spin and fall. The 3rd man raised his weapon, but the wolf emerged again, biting his wrist with surgical precision. In seconds, it was over. 3 men on the ground disarmed. Thomas with multiple guns pointed at them. "Dutch is dead," Thomas said, voice steady despite exhaustion. "Martinez, too. The kid's alive, trapped on the mountain. The money's buried under 20 tons of snow." Garrett stared at him, holding his bleeding shoulder. "Who are you?" "Just a farmer looking for his sheep. But now I'm the man who's taking you 3 to the sheriff in Leadville." "You and what army?" Thomas smiled, tired. "Me and my partner here." The wolf limped to his side, sat down, yellow eyes fixed on the prisoners. The longest night still wasn't over. Dawn came painting the mountains gold and red, as if the sky itself celebrated the end of that hellish night. Thomas had tied the 3 men with their own ropes, using knots he'd learned from cowboys in Texas, impossible to untie without help. "You'll ride in front," he ordered, checking the confiscated weapons. "One escape attempt, and I let my friend here decide your fate." The wolf was lying near the stove, breathing more regular now. During the night, Thomas had shared his last meal with it. 2 unlikely beings united by survival. Garrett laughed bitterly. "You won't make it. It's 3 days to Leadville. Alone, with 3 prisoners and a dying wolf." "I've done harder things," Thomas responded, though he doubted his own words. He found an old sled in the cabin, the kind hunters used to transport pelts. He improvised a bed for the wolf, using blankets and furs. The animal didn't resist when placed, just kept those vigilant eyes on the prisoners. The journey began under a weak winter sun. Thomas walked behind the horses, rifle always ready, the wolf's sled pulled by an improvised rope. Each step was agony, but something drove him forward. Maybe justice, maybe just Irish stubbornness. On the second day, they found the kid. The boy was still alive, delirious from cold and pain, but alive. Thomas put him on one of the horses, ignoring Garrett's protests about wasting time with dead weight. "Every man deserves trial," Thomas said, "even the worst." It was at Mosquito Pass that they almost lost everything. Garrett had loosened his bonds days working on them with a sharp buckle. When he attacked, it was quick and brutal, knocking Thomas into the snow. They fought there, on the edge of the precipice. Punches and claws. Two men desperate for opposite reasons. Garrett was younger, stronger, rested. Thomas was at his limit, every movement torture. Salvation came on for pause. The wolf, who could barely walk, somehow got out of the sled. It didn't attack Garrett, just stood there, growling. Those yellow eyes fixed on the bandit. The distraction was enough. Thomas landed a perfect right hook, and Garrett fell unconscious. "Partner," Thomas gasped to the wolf. "You have terrible timing, but excellent instinct." Leadville appeared on the third day, like a vision of paradise. Little wooden houses, smoking people in the streets, civilization. The substitute sheriff, a young man named Walsh, almost fell off his chair when Thomas entered his office. "Holy God, are those Dutch's men? We've been looking for them across 3 states. Dutch is dead. Martinez, too. These 4 are what's left." The reward was substantial, $2,000 for the bandits alive. Thomas didn't even blink when Walsh handed him the money. His mind was elsewhere. "Sheriff, I need a favor, a veterinarian, the best in town." Walsh looked at the wolf, lying in the doorway. "That beast saved you. We saved each other." The veterinarian, an old German named Schultz, worked 2 hours on the wolf. "He'll limp forever," he said, "but he'll live. He's resistant, has survivor's blood." Thomas paid with part of the reward, then bought supplies. He was leaving town when Walsh caught up with him. "McBride, you forgot this. It was an official paper. Special license. This wolf is yours, now legally. No one can touch him." Thomas looked at the paper, then at the wolf limping beside him. "He's not mine, Sheriff. We're partners." The return to the ranch took 2 days. When they arrived, Thomas found something impossible. His sheep, all 17, sheltered in a protected ravine. Survivors of the storm. "Well," he said to the wolf, "seems this journey wasn't for nothing." The wolf limped to the cabin porch, lay down as if it had always belonged there. And maybe, Thomas thought, it always had. Sometimes, the family we find in the mountains is worth more than the one we're born into. That night, while the wolf slept near the fireplace and Thomas cleaned his rifle, he thought of Sarah. "Every life has value," she had said. She was right, always had been. And you, have you ever had an encounter that changed your life? Tell us here in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and share. Stories like this deserve to be told. And don't forget to hit the bell, because next week there's another incredible Old West adventure waiting for you.